Hi, my name is Aksik, aka Annika. Welcome to my channel, where we mostly talk about adult coloring and adult coloring books and art materials and whatever pops into my head. And today it's time for another flip through. Quite a few of you have been asking for this one because you've seen clips here and there from this book. I got it a little bit more than a week ago, and I always planned to do a flip through, but I decided not to do it before I had some work done here, so you can get a better picture. Anyway, the book is called Pride and Prejudice. It's evening when I'm doing this, so everything that is golden is kind of glinting and shiny and hard to kind of see. And it's published by BBC. The artist is Charlotte Rickards or Rickards. I don't know exactly how to pronounce that name. And it is based on the 1995 BBC miniseries Pride and Prejudice, which to me is the best one around. It pretty much, to me, it's the only one. I never took to the 2005 movie as much as I do like this miniseries. It's truest to the book. So this book is very portrait heavy. So if you're not into kind of coloring portraits or coloring people, it's probably not for you. But the paper is good and the art is very good. And I'll talk about that in more detail once we start flipping it. I have one kind of a big whip here, which is quite far gone, and one finished spread. So you have some sort of a idea then how it's going to, the works here, at least when I work it, how they're going to look like. So let's start the flip through. So at first there's a little about the illustrator. It says she is an illustrator and a writer. Her work is characterized by its line work, hatching and cross-hatching, offering contemporary take on Regency era etchings. Charlotte's writing has appeared in publications including Inigo, Aesthetica, and Polyester. She holds a master's in art history and history from the University of St. Andrews, and this is her first illustrated book. Her line art is beautifully delicate and not overdone, and I especially like it on portraits, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. So here is the title page, and next to it is a couple of fans, which all this part here I think would be really good for testing different pencils and materials, because everybody wants to do their own tests as well, and also I cannot possibly try everything. But I have tried quite a few things, but I'll talk about these. So there's wallpaper like this. There's one in the beginning and there's one I think pretty much identical at the end. And here we have most of the spreads would be like this. There's illustration on the right and there's a quote on the left. The quote is usually done, pretty tastefully and often not overdone. Here, there's quite a lot of detail around here. It's inspired, I think, by the intro of the miniseries, where the music we all know from, and the camera is panning over different fabrics of the era. I think it's inspired by this. And this is Elizabeth on one of her walks. This is now Elizabeth, my Elizabeth. I like her as Elizabeth. She pops into my head every time I imagine Elizabeth. It's not Keira Knightley, it's Sir Jennifer Ehle, I think is Ehle. I don't know exactly how to pronounce her last name. This is Longbourn. If you love coloring architecture, there's a couple of spreads like this for you there, and these would be kind of those landscapes. There aren't too many of them, but there are a couple of exteriors of the locations or scenes like this throughout the book. Mr. Darcy on the horse, that's also in the very beginning. I think this shot is from when Mr. Bingley and Mr. Darcy first come to inspect Netherfields, if it's going to be okay for renting. And this is the Bennet sisters. So we all know. So it's Jane, Mary, Kitty, Lydia, and Elizabeth. Here we have Mrs. Bennet. No one knows what I suffer with my nerves, but I never complain. She is one of the most hilarious characters ever written. This is now the assembly in Meryton, where everybody meets the first time. I like the angle here. You can see, kind of dainty dress and pretty slippers and man's feet, stocking feet, and kind of nice shoes. I really like the angle of it. It would be kind of almost cool to color, although those quote pages, I will show you how I usually treat them. I kind of try to simplify, usually the ones I've done. I try to simplify them for myself. But this is one of the few kind of a busier scenes. There's quite a few people here, and there's people dancing in the background. And the center of the scene is obviously Mr. Bingley and Jane meeting, and Caroline and Louisa Bingley's sisters not being particularly happy about the surroundings. And here's the dance. Once again, I presume it's still on the Meryton Assembly, but I'm not 100% sure. It could be somewhere else as well, because this looks a little bit like Wickham, but I'm not sure. It's not similar enough for me to be 100% about it. This is one of the few pictures that I don't like women's faces. I'm going to lift you. Usually, I'm very happy with how she does portraits. I'm going to talk about it in a minute. But here the mouths are the lips are weirdly done. That's it. And here we have, I'm pretty sure that's Netherfield. So another kind of big building. If you enjoy doing the big buildings, that's down your alley. One thing it's kind of a disappointment for me is, like, I would have loved, if I do a building, I would prefer it to be more in an environment. Push the building a bit backwards and put garden around it and some scene, some people in front of it. Building like that on its own is not usually interesting for me, so that probably will never get colored by me. This is Jane Bennet, the beauty of Meryton and Longbourn and the surrounding areas. That's our main couple, Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy. Oh yeah, and the insult. She's tolerable, I suppose, but she's not handsome enough to tempt me. Here we have a little kind of there's very few of these, but there are a couple of scenes like this. And here's two sisters. I presume they're sisters, just walking, and there's a little sheep on the foreground and trees, and that would actually make a really nice scene. Also, it could be very kind of autumnal, because you have the hazelnuts here ready, and it kind of gives a bit of an autumn vibe, this image, although they're still wearing parasols. But they very much used these most of the time, didn't they? Mr. Wickham. The good old cad of cads. Mr. and Mrs. Gardiner. Okay, and the next spread is now going to be my whip. And that is Elizabeth reading what is happening here in the camera. I'm trying to kind of switch that one off and see if it makes it better. Right at the moment, the camera is washing out all the shading in her face. She actually has much deeper shading and kind of a better, but it all looks very kind of white and pale and weird. It is actually better. I should try to take a photo of it when there's more natural light. But essentially, here we have all it's based with watercolor, and I tend to do here that on for the quote, I tend to create this sort of a old paper or really aged paper background. This is a whip now that it's not finished. I need to finish the vines and stuff, but I'm doing these mostly with a gel pen. I don't plan to really color them with pencils. I don't think they're calling for it, especially in a background like this. She has also, mostly everything is based with watercolor. These ones are paper pieced. There's 2 different pattern papers I put here. I'm going to lift it so you can see. So I used 2 pattern papers to create the table and whatever is in front of her, some sort of a couch or blanket or whatever. And then everything else except her skin is based here with watercolors. I tried to kind of, I wanted to get a feel, how the pencils lay down on the paper. I did the skin with Artex pencils. Even if I bring it closer, it still looks kind of washed out, which it actually isn't. But I think it comes out, but the hair was based with watercolor. But the face was just, kind of off the white paper, essentially. The hands and the face is done only with Artex pencils. There's nothing else there. It's still not finished. I haven't put the kind of a highlights in there, but it's mostly done. The background is light fast and pro color pencils. And what else? There was something else. I think there might be a little bit of Artex pencil. No, Woomer. There was a little bit of Woomer pencil here as well. I did kind of a weird mix of, here, this one I kind of went over with pro colors, and here was a mixture of light fast and Woomer, and they all laid down really nicely. So, and watercolor, this paper, I absolutely, I'm telling you, I soaked it. It was swimming with water because I was just dropping watercolor in and different granulating, some granulating colors, but mostly just, kind of different rosa watercolors, kind of earth tones. And you can see on the other side here of the paper that it did not go through anywhere except where my paper, the backing paper, moved tiny bit. But because I used these to put beneath the behind the page, the water that would have usually seeped, if you move the brush like that from the top, often the water seeps behind the page and you get kind of a staining on top of the page. Here, there's a tiny bit where those towels moved slightly, but they stay put very well because they're, they're not slippery. They have a bit of a grip and they very much absorb. You can see how, any wet paint is absorbed immediately into the paper towels, and therefore the page stays quite, the backing page, just a tiny bit here and there, which doesn't matter at all and is very easily disguised. So I find that this worked really well for me. So here we have, pretty sure that's Meriton. And here, I don't know what I did here. I suspect that I put my hand covered with oil. I have hand oil that I occasionally use. My hands get very dry. And I suspect I had to put my hand there while I was either talking or doing something. And I have a bit of a stain here. You know, if I wanted to, I can disguise that, no problem. And here you can see there's a little bit of a bleed through. I did this one with water-based markers, and water-based markers, one layer does not go through. I tested that, but I did that basically, I blended, you know, I used several different grays and different colors to drop in and blended them out. There's no pencil in this vase here. I just did it with water-based markers, and you can see that, you know, if you add layers and layers and work them over itself while they're wet, because that's where they blend, you know, that obviously comes through. Here we have, I think that's the Netherfield's drawing room, but I'm not 100% sure. Here's Mrs. Bennet and her friends and neighbors at the Netherfields ball. Here we have our favorite couple again, Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth. So, well, I haven't said, but everybody knows it's Colin Firth, obviously. And this is another scene from Netherfield Ball. This is now Pemberley. And once again, it's very kind of a, these ones I'm not a huge fan of. It's kind of a very boring frontal angle of the building with nothing, you know, basically it floats in the middle of the spread with no environment around it. I would have preferred kind of more interesting angle, or at least push it back and put something around it. But, you know, it all can't be perfect. I really love the portraits. I love the portraits because the portraits, and I'll get to some portrait which is kind of, you know, bigger, so I can explain. This is the famous scene when Mr. Darcy arrives to Pemberley, basically to his home, and it's a hot day and he's feeling out of sorts, so he just before going to the house, he jumps into the lake and swims to the other side of the lake to cool down. And this is the famous wet shirt moment with him, which I don't really like how this one is drawn, although, you know, it's okay, it's possible to color pretty well, but, you know, you would need to put the background. If you wanted background, you would need to put it behind it. But because this book takes watercolor so well, I find backgrounds here very easy, especially if you wet the whole paper and, you know, we put the colors down. But I'm going to show you where I put colors down, you know, just in areas, and even there. It looks pretty all right. But usually, you know, if you look at his line art, she doesn't have unnecessary lines or very strong lines on the face, which, you know, I really, you know, if I try to color a portrait, I prefer the lines to be fairly delicate, so they don't interfere with my coloring and don't dominate the portrait. Although I do, you know, like, for example, the Bridgerton book has very strong lines, and I still like the line art there, so it's not a law. Elizabeth and Jane, Bingley sisters, Caroline and Louisa. This is just kind of a quote spread, which probably, you know, I will not do. Elizabeth and Mr. Collins. Mr. Bennet. I love that portrait. I think it's a very well captured portrait of him. It's like slightly irreverent, you know, kind of fairly sarcastic, but, you know, kindly but slightly absent person in their daughters' lives. In his daughters' lives, sorry. This is now Charlotte Lucas and Mr. Collins, or at that stage, I presume they are already Mr. and Mrs. Collins. I think that is Lady Catherine de Bourgh's carriage, but I'm not 100% sure. But I think that's what they're depicting here. But this is not one of those few scenes that you could color. Possibly, although you only have foreground, you would need to put the background in yourself. This is really lovely portrait of Elizabeth. You see how very few, how very scarce and brief the line art is. There's no excess of lines, which some artists feel a need, especially for coloring book, to put down a lot of kind of, shading gears with big black lines, this should be shaded and this should be shaded. And it annoys the heck out of me. I prefer it to be almost clean like this. And then it's much easier to kind of decide where you put the shading. And here, Mary Bennet. I always feel sorry for her. I'd actually like to color her. She has an interesting face. This is the scene where Elizabeth has gotten a letter from Jane that tells her that Lydia has eloped from the Wickham, and Mr. Darcy is as awkward as he possibly can be in the situation. That's Georgina Darcy, Mr. Darcy's sister. I think she's 16 there, or is it 17 already? Here is Lydia and Kitty, and this is lace around them. Kind of a cute Lydia and random officer, and Lydia being boisterous, like normal teen. And Lady Catherine de Bourgh, Mr. Darcy's aunt. And here's another scene of a feast at, I presume, Longbourn, because there's Kitty Bennet and Mrs. Bennet. Here you can see what had happened is that I had based something on the previous page with water-based marker, but then I didn't use that base. I put something fairly wet on top, acrylic marker, but it was kind of very juicy acrylic marker, and a little bit of the water-based marker came through to the page. But this is probably not the page I want to color anyway. I'm not really big into coloring that sort of a big spread of food. This is now my only finished spread. Once again, I did the kind of a watercolor effect with kind of an old roughed up paper that has seen some time and use and abuse. And the background is Langlois colorful black here, all the background, and the gold is I can show you. I got them when my relatives came to visit. These Hotu superior golden pens. Okay, yeah, Hotu superior golden pens. They're really nice. The gold is really beautiful and bright, and if you keep it going, it's nice and juicy as well. One complaint is that they're not properly full, that there's only maybe, if you look at the barrel of the marker, there's only maybe less than half of it of the gold ink in it, which is kind of really because I used up one of these. Basically, I'd only done a couple of pages and not, even very, this one has, quite a bit of an ink usage. But I've done a couple of other pages where I haven't used even that much, and the marker was dead. So they don't last long, but they are really nice. So what did I start saying? Okay, so the letters here are done with the golden metallic pens. And here you can see also, I didn't do the full page with watercolors, and when you put the watercolor down first, you get fairly strong buckling, but once it dries, you would just leave it dry overnight. It dries, it settles down. It's not going to be like perfectly straight, but I can show you, like you get a bit of a wave or whatever, but no huge buckling. And for the previous page, you know, this is now the page that I absolutely, utterly soaked with paper and put watercolor, you know, just wet all over and put watercolor down. And at first you get kind of buckling as well. And then when you leave it to dry, everything kind of contracts again. And the paper is pretty much almost as good as new, you know, there's no visible buckling in it. So it's a really nice book for watercolor. The watercolor doesn't absorb into the paper immediately. You can move it around quite long. Even when it's dried, you can still go and move it around. So it can be a bit of a danger as well, because occasionally, you know, if you put one layer down, the other layer needs to be kind of a gentle glazes over it. If you want to kind of do heavy blending, or kind of that's something that involves rubbing the brush on the paper, it will actually possibly activate the previous layers. So you have to be careful with consequent layers. The portrait here is done with, everything is based with watercolor. Sorry, yeah, absolutely everything is based with watercolor. Let me see if I can get it close so it would actually look okay. And the base of the portrait, the face, is done with watercolors as well. It's all rosa watercolors. And then there's Brutfuner skin color pencils on top, and tiny bit of gel pen and tiny bit of Prismacolor white. The background I just did with watercolor. I didn't want to deal with those patterns on the wallpaper. Just, you know, wasn't my thing, and I didn't feel like it. So I just did it fairly dark and kind of left it at that. And I also am now a bit sorry that, you know, I used glaze pen on the buttons, and they kind of look weird and cheap, kind of a clownish in this image. That doesn't really work well. But I can't really, I don't know if I'm going to fix it or just leave it, because to me it's kind of finished now. It's done. Yeah, I don't think I used any other pencils here. The coat was done fully with watercolors. I didn't put any pencil on it. I did put some pencils onto the cravat and the shirt and, you know, the folds of the vest here. But I think they were also Brutfuner skin color pencils, if I remember. No, I'm lying. I actually used Faber-Castell Black Edition. I tested this one out. And all of the pencils I have mentioned so far laid down nicely. But also you have to take into account the fact that a lot of them are used on top of watercolor, so they would have laid down pretty nicely there anyway. Here we have Lydia and Mr. Wickham. This is really lovely kind of a composition. Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth. I like this one, is one of the few kind of really dynamic ones. You know, both are in the movement. I like the kind of a wreath of autumn leaves around there. I think it's horse chestnut. But and I kind of thought about doing this one when I saw that first. But then I, for some reason, you know, went for these ones first. So I don't know when that one gets done. I need to now take a, you know, I probably won't start another spread in this book. This is Mr. Bingley and Jane, obviously. And this is the famous final scene when they are driving away from their wedding or wedding ceremony together. And this is the kind of a post-wedding ceremony when they're leaving the church. Here I just tested different things. There's pastel watercolors, which I discovered that the pencils don't lay on top very well. So the face of Elizabeth is a bit of a disaster. Here I put water-based markers down and just wash them out on the paper, and you can see it's absolutely possible, but it will go through, not hugely, but in the darker parts when you dissolve the marker it will go through. This is just water-based marker, just testing how this one will work here, and there was no bleed through. This is water-based marker that I put onto the palette, just scribbled and then applied with water brush. And you can also see that there is no bleed through for this. So, and this is also water-based marker here. So I kind of tried different things here. And here we have the same wallpaper as in the beginning. And last page. And we're done. This was now typically a fairly long flip through, but I have to admit that most of the long part came about me explaining, you know, about the pages I have done and what I used here. So hopefully you found something interesting here. Maybe you like the book, maybe you don't, maybe it's not your jam at all, maybe it's exactly what you have been hoping for. The portraits are very good. They are very good likenesses of the actors and actresses in this series. They are, you know, there are scenes, there are very nicely done portraits where you can put background down, or you can just leave it white, or you can just put something abstract, you know, behind them. There's little scenes like this. What I, you know, as I said, I found these kind of big flat floating buildings a bit kind of a bad choice, but that is, you know, my opinion. Maybe I just think that this is kind of like a boring angle for a building. I would have preferred environment, not just building. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Once again, hopefully you had a good time with me here, and I wish you all the best. I wish you great, wonderful, creative time, and have a beautiful morning or evening or afternoon, whatever the time is in your corner of the world. And hopefully you'll be back again. Bye-bye.